A Soldier Recalls. Birthday story of Private John G. Burnett, Captain Abraham McClellan's Company, 2nd Regiment, 2nd Brigade, Mounted Infantry, Cherokee Indian Removal, 1838 to 1839. The removal of Cherokee Indians from their lifelong homes in the year of 1838 found me a young man in the prime of life and a private soldier in the American Army. Being acquainted with many of the Indians and able to fluently speak their language, I was sent as an interpreter into the Smoky Mountain country in May 1838 and witnessed the execution of the most brutal order in the history of American warfare. I saw the helpless Cherokee arrested and dragged from their homes and driven at the bayonet point into the stockades. And in the chilling of a drizzling rain on an October morning, I saw them loaded like cattle or sheep into 645 wagons and started toward the west. One can never forget the sadness and solemnity of that morning. Chief John Ross led in prayer, and when the bugle sounded and the wagons started rolling, many of the children rose to their feet and waved their little hands goodbye to their mountain homes, knowing they were leaving them forever. Many of these helpless people did not have blankets, and many of them had been driven from home barefooted. The long, painful journey to the west ended March 26, 1839, with 4,000 silent graves reaching from the foothills of the Smoky Mountains to what is known as Indian Territory in the west. And covetousness, which means greed or envy, on the part of the white race was the cause of all that Cherokee had to suffer. In the year 1828, a little Indian boy living on Ward Creek had sold a gold nugget to a white trader, and that nugget sealed the doom of the Cherokees. In a short time, the country was overrun with armed brigands claiming to be government agents who paid no attention to the rights of the Indians, who were the legal possessors of the country. Crimes were committed that were a disgrace to civilization. Men were shot in cold blood. Lands were confiscated, which means taken. Homes were burned and the inhabitants driven out by the gold-hungry brigands. The doom of the Cherokee was sealed. Washington, D.C. had decreed that they must be driven west and their lands given to the white men. And in May of 1838, an army of 4,000 regulars and 3,000 volunteer soldiers under command of General Winfield Scott marched into the Indian country and wrote the blackest chapter on the pages of American history. Men working in the fields were arrested and driven to the stockades. Women were dragged from their homes by soldiers whose language they could not understand. Children were often separated from their parents and driven into the stockades with the sky for a blanket and the earth for a pillow. And often the old and infirm were prodded with bayonets to hasten them to the stockades. Chief Junaluska, who had saved President Jackson's life at the Battle of Horseshoe, witnessed this scene, the tears gushing down his cheeks, and lifting his cap, he turned his face toward the heavens and said, "Oh my God, if I had known at the Battle of the Horseshoe what I know now, American history would have been differently written." Future generations will read and condemn the act, and I do hope posterity, future generations, will remember that private soldiers like myself, and like the 4 Cherokee who were forced by General Scott to shoot an Indian chief and his children, had to execute the orders of our superiors. We had no choice in the matter.